Hey guys, and welcome to one of our educational videos, and this one's really exciting. In fact, I would even say epic. This is going to be an epic video. Now, I just did an epic video, and many of you commented that that word is overused, but in this case, my Krieghoff Luger video was epic. Now I'm going to almost top it by showing you the biggest collection of engraved PPs and PPKs on the planet. At least I think it is. So come on in and let's take a look at some of these engraved Walthers. So let's start off with some serial numbers, and as I've said before, because I've shown you other engraved PPs and PPKs, they tend to fall into groups. In other words, if we had factory letters, we could go back and say, was this engraved from the factory? All those records were destroyed. But collectors like myself have been gathering data for 25 to 30 years, and we have come up with serial ranges for PPs and PPKs. Obviously, you can screenshot this, but make it easier. If you email us, just ask us for the summary sheet of engraved guns, and we will send this to you. Let me first off say that there are others not on here. So, for example, the first one, 1937, 1938. There were engraved guns earlier than that. I have engraved guns that I believe are factory going back to 1933. But there's only one or two, and then there'll be one, and then there'll be none, and then there'll be... So there's not like a grouping like this. When I see a group, all of them being engraved, then I know that these were factory engraved. They're pulled off the line, basically the production line. They're pulled off the production line, set aside for engraving. The engraving could take 6 months to a year because they were backed up and they would put them on hold. And I'll show you how I know that. It could take 6 months to a year to actually get them engraved and get them out. But these were all special order guns pulled from the factory floor. You see the first category is actually, I'm going to do PPKs first. You will notice that there are many more PPs that are engraved than PPKs. PPKs are probably more popular and a little more expensive. The first recorded block that I have in 1938 is in the Million series, and I don't have one to show you. I've actually never owned an engraved Million series. Then we go down to, and you see, in the 2010 range to 2011, take a look at these two guns because they fall into that group. This one is gold engraved. The engraving is oak leaf and acorn. Mostly oak leaf. I don't see too many acorns. Sometimes you see acorns in there. Oak leaf and acorn, gold engraved with a brown grip. You'll notice that even the screw is engraved. And we'll take a look at the other side because this one was presented, has the person's name. This next one, so this one serial number is 210, and this one is 211. So you see the difference. First of all, this one is blued and this one is gold. Obviously, the gold is beautiful. This has a party leader grip. I have no idea if that originally came with it, but certainly it's on there now, and when I bought it, it had a party leader grip on it. You'll notice, again, the screw is engraved, just very minor engraving. The style of engraving on this one is considered a vine. Some people call it a grapevine. I don't know. It's more of a floral arrangement as opposed to the oak leaf. Oak leaf is by far the most common. You'll see a lot of oak leaf. Then moving on with PPKs, the next category. This one's out of sequence. It's actually in the 202 serial range. I thought I set these up sequentially, but should actually be one of the first ones. You'll see the second category is 202. So that is an early one. Again, gold. And this one also looks floral or vine, but that's a standard pattern, just like this one. The Germanic engraving were basically one of three patterns. You'll see all three of them here. But there's slight differences. If you look at the front, they're very similar. These were made about a year apart, and you can see they're still crown end proofed. And then this one is actually not on the list. If you look at 297, 297 serial range. There is not a group, but I'm showing you this one just to show you an example of this one did not come in a group. It just came one all by itself. But in looking at it, it is silver engraved. The white grip is special and looks all original. It's oak leaf. And I included it just as an example of not every time do you find them in a solid block. Every once in a while you see one or two. However, I can't prove this is factory. I believe it is, just by taking a look at the quality of the engraving and the fact that it has a white grip, although the screw is not engraved. So if I had this one, I wouldn't have 100% confidence that it was factory engraved, but it's a good example of period engraved. It was done at that period, but we don't know for sure that it was a factory engraver. I just threw that in as an example. And then finally, the last category of PPK, if you look at your list, you'll see it's in the 408,000 range. We actually did a video. We had two sequential PPKs, and you can see they were from 1944 in the 400,000 range, actually 408. I believe these were ordered by Himmler. They had blank slides where he could make a presentation to a soldier or to a friend. And that was, again, common practice. He did it early and he did it late in order to boost morale, but very few engraved guns in 1944. As you can imagine, the factories had more important things to do, like try to make resources for the war effort. But if Himmler said, I want some guns, they would stop what they were doing and get some guns. Coming back to PPKs, again, this is, I'm jumping ahead, but this is an example of the same thing. The twins have no proof mark, which means it was set aside in the factory, never test fired, and this portion is blank, and that's because it was waiting an inscription to be presented to somebody, some kind of a Nazi leader or a hero of the Third Reich. But let's go back in sequence to the beginning. We've done the PPKs, and there are far more PPs, so let's take a look at these. Again, there are early engraved guns, but they're not in a solid block. This is the first block of PPs. So these two are both in the 976 range. So just like the PPKs, I have an example of a gold and one blued. Down here we have early from 1938. We have two, one blued and one in a gold. Now what's interesting about 1938, if you think about the history, the Germans, the Nazis, were in their heyday. They had, the war hadn't started yet, but they had just built an economy. They had 100% employment. Everything was, a lot of this is propaganda, of course. According to their sources, everything in the Third Reich was just humming on all cylinders. The economy's going great. They're building highways, building their railroads, new technologies. And so before Hitler, people just didn't have a lot of money. They were a very, very poor country, and they didn't have much to celebrate. But in 38, 39, and just before the war, they were at the height of their glory. And as you know, they're having parades, nighttime parades with torches and banners, daytime parades, just parades, parades, parades. They had parade uniforms, parade daggers, parade swords, and they were making or presenting a lot of these engraved guns. So let's take a look again. So the first one, this is a custom-made grip, I'm sure, because I've never seen another one like it. Interesting that it has oak leaf, a little bit of an inlay there, and you'll notice this one is a 9mm. It's the only engraved gun that I have that is not in 7.65. And by the way, yes, I have seen 22 caliber engraved, factory engraved, and I've only seen a couple 9mm factory engraved. So this one, 9mm with a custom grip, and you'll notice again, everything is engraved. Let's see. Yeah, grip screw is engraved. We've got inlay, and you can see the quality of the engraving. Let's do the other side. You'll notice that the safety is engraved. Gold has the ivory grip. Notice grip screw is engraved. Bottom of the magazine. Notice this piece here is very, this wouldn't have it, but you can see how ornate that is. And on the PPK, you wouldn't have that just because it was a one-piece grip that covered that up. Let's take a look at the front. We've seen that pattern before, very similar. So they did similar styles in the factory. They always did under here. And sometimes the ejection port was engraved. These early ones, I don't see the engraved ejection port, but in a little bit you're going to see where even the ejection port is engraved. Let's take a look at the other side. This one is gold. You can see the gold wash coming off, and underneath is a chrome or a nickel finish underneath the gold. On the front strap it's almost all gone. Same way with the back strap. Let's compare back straps. They're very similar. So this is an example of engraved from 1938. Okay, let's go to the next grouping, and this is in the 127 range. These two, if you take a look at these, they're both in the 127. If we take a look at our sheet, we can see that the 127 range, there was a group of engraved guns pulled off the factory floor, and this was now 1939. Now here's an educational piece for both of us. This one is actually later. Serial number is later than this one, but this one is crown N. This one is eagle N. It also has a red grip, which didn't show up until about 1940. So the red grip is too early. Again, somebody could have switched the grip, but if I take this at face value, this gun was pulled off the factory floor in 1939, but that eagle N, as opposed to the crown N, tells me this one was engraved first. This one sat around for a while, maybe 6 months to a year, and then came out with the eagle N and the red grip, which didn't exist in 1939. So that's just further evidence that they pulled them off the factory floor. In fact, I'll go a step further, and I will say that they pulled them off the floor and just did the frame and the slide. Then later, when they're ready for the order, they pull out the other parts and engrave them separately. And I'll show you why in a little bit, why I believe that. Again, this is just my conjecture from studying these. If you have another opinion, you're welcome to respectfully submit it. You see the front. Again, similar pattern on the front strap. These are both 7.65. A little bit different on the back strap. Now this I see quite a bit. This is a ribbon pattern. This is just a straight engraved pattern. This is a ribbon pattern. I see that a lot. We can see that the ejection port is not engraved. This grip screw is engraved. This one is not. But the safeties are engraved. Here, this one is a floral pattern. I can actually see flowers here. So a little bit of a different floral pattern. And so far we can see that oak leaf is the most popular and floral is coming in a second. And this one that's oak leaf, but there you see that ribbon again. So this was a little bit different. Whoever engraved this one added a little flair to it. You'll see it on the back tang. You'll see the oak leaf. And if we get really close, you can even, on the factory engraved, you'll see the veins in the leaves. That's how ornate it was. And then you see the stippling in the blank spaces where it just so much effort went into these. Beautifully engraved guns. Okay, so here's what's really exciting as I study this stuff. From here, this whole second half of the table, every one of these is in the 215 range. In fact, any gun that I've ever seen, any PP in the 215 range has been an engraved gun. If you look at the sheet one more time, it's in bold because from 215, 153, all the way to 215. So basically the entire 215 serial range from 1940, these are all engraved guns. And you'll find them in silver, you'll find them in nickel, you'll find them in gold, but by far the most exciting engraved guns come from this period of time in the 215 range. So let's focus for a little bit on this 215 range, because within this range, as I do research, here's a list of famous people that had an engraved gun in the 215 range. First of all, General Patton actually got two in this serial range. 215 297P is in the West Point Museum. It was presented to Patton by the troops who captured the factory. They got a gun like this one, and they engraved General Patton, and then they also have a symbol of the unit on either side, and that gun is in a West Point museum. There's also a second one. He's the only general that we know of that actually got two. He got a second one in the museum at VMI, Virginia Military Institute. So he was presented with two. And then also General Eddy, who was the commander of the 90th Infantry Division. They were the ones that took over the factory, and either his men had it engraved with his name on it, or he did it himself. So in other words, when they captured a gun like this, and then they put General M.S. Eddy, and it was presented to him. Again, he could have done it himself, had it done, because they captured the engravers and gave them work to do, and I'm sure they paid them to make some engraved guns. They also made one for James Sinclair, Major James Sinclair. I actually have a picture of that one. That's sold on Rock Island Auction. He was a major in the 90th Infantry Division. And just to show how egalitarian the U.S. Army was, a Private First Class E.W. Beckman of the 90th Infantry Division was also given an engraved gun with his name on it because he distinguished himself valor in the face of the enemy, and won the Distinguished Service Cross, and he has an engraved PPK with his name on it, and it says Private First Class E.W. Beckman. Now let's go through these one at a time. This one is a good example of what I was talking about before, because you'll notice that the trigger guard is not engraved. The trigger is not engraved, and remember I said the triggers were always engraved and the trigger guard was always engraved. These are not. There are no proof marks, which means it was never fired, never test fired, never issued, and these smaller pieces were never engraved. This is in the blue, which it shouldn't be, and the trigger is in the blue, which it shouldn't be. So my conjecture was these parts were in the factory at the end of the war. Soldiers were getting them for themselves, in some cases presenting them to fellow officers and fellow servicemen. They put this together, and all they had engraved in the factory was the frame and the slide, and then they put the rest together and took it home. You can see the bottom is engraved. Notice the front strap, oak leaf and acorn. A beautiful gun. But again, picked up at the factory at the end of the war. Just like this one. Now this one has, this is a presentation grip. And this one, it could be silver because you see a lot of tarnish. You'll notice there's no proof mark, but it does have an engraved trigger guard and trigger. The safety is not engraved. The grip screw is not engraved. Take a look at the back strap. See some similarities there. Beautiful guns. Front strap. See some similarities there. Beautiful guns. And this one in particular has no writing on the panel. It was all ready to be presented, but never presented. Just like the twins on the PPK, made in '44, they were never presented. So they're in the factory at the end of the war, brought home by an industrious GI. Let's keep going in the 215 serial range. One famous German that had an engraved 215 serial range, in fact, it is 215-361, was Albert Speers. Albert Speers was called the architect of the war because he was an architect, but he was put in charge of war production and very effective in his job. We know it was his gun because he survived the war and he identified it as his gun. It was a gold engraved, similar to one of these. At the Nuremberg trials, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison and spent that time at Spandau prison. I think he was released just before he died. Let's move on to this gold engraved gun. This one you can see beautiful oak leaf. Again, there's no engraving in the ejection port, but engraving here. There's not engraving. I suspect that is not the original grip or screw, but somebody added that. Not sure why, because that's not engraved. And a beautiful gun like that, it would have been engraved. Also, it would not have been blued. It would have to be gold. But we know this is factory engraved because of the serial range. That's the point I keep making over and over. It's all about the serial range, engraved gun. Here's another one. These are all sequential, by the way. So the only order I'm doing them in is the sequence in which they were made. So this one is next, 215, 342, and you can see how close together these are, 215, 317, and so on. They're all within 10 to 20 numbers of each other. Right away, you guys are really smart because you can see right away, never issued, no proof marks, but it's engraved all the way around. Not sure about the finish, could be nickel. It's just interesting how it's all, where this one is bright all around. This is dark in the recesses, so I'm not quite sure about that finish. But you see the very similar front straps and back straps. You also get to see the variations in the grips. These brown grips, as I said, were presentation grips, but in this case it should be gold, so somebody might have switched it out. Seems like there's a lot more that were never issued, because here's another one, 215, and this is 368. This one, not engraved here, not engraved here, so again, somebody picked it up. Maybe the reason there's so many of these is because the ones that were issued stayed in Germany. They were probably hidden away. If they were presentation guns, they were worth a lot of money, and you were supposed to turn them in at the end of the war, and I would assume some of the civilians did not do that. But these were all captured at the factory and brought home by the GIs, so therefore, in the United States, these unissued ones are a lot more plentiful, probably a lot more plentiful than they would be in Europe. But certainly there's some good engraved guns still showing up in Europe. So that's an example like the others. Now we're going to get into some that are truly fascinating and phenomenal guns. In fact, I'll just let Randy scan this last row. And again, these are sequential. So the early 215 range looks like a lot of them stayed in the factory and were never issued. All of these, except for one, I think, not sure this one was ever issued. All of these are issued. These are all a little bit later, but they're 215, 36, 36, 38, 39, and this one is special. There's no serial number on that one, so I saved it for last, and I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it last. This gun is an amazing gun because this is the way they looked when they were given to a high-ranking party official. They had the party leader eagle, and they had initials. So, for example, Victor Lutz. Victor Lutz had a engraved gun like this one presented to him in 1938, and it has, you can see the VL is on the grip. It's an ivory grip with VL, and he's got the party leader eagle. Victor Lutz was the head of the SA after Ernst Röhm. So when Ernst Röhm was killed, it moved out of the way in a coup, Victor Lutz became the head of the SA, and he had a gold engraved gun. There's a picture of it. It sold at Rock Island. I did bid, but I dropped out way before the end of the auction. And this one, the initials, this one is GH or HG, so it could be Hermann Goering. I just can't say for sure, but it definitely was a high-ranking party official, because on this one, you can see it's a deeper engraving. It was gold covered, but that all wore away. This was not stored really well. It could have been Hermann Goering's, but I can't say that because there's dozens of Hermann Goering guns. But this definitely went to a high-ranking party official. You can see how ornate the engraving is. One of the really cool features is under here. You'll see on these engraved guns how beautiful they are underneath. And then look at these front straps, how deep the engraving is. Just absolutely beautiful. Back strap. This one is clearly in much better condition. There's no initials on this one. but you can see the quality, and again, it's called a deep engraving. You'll notice the difference on a regular engraving is nice, but the deep engraving is just so much deeper. You can see the difference there on the deep engraving. So these went to high-ranking party officials. You had to have a lot of clout to get one of these. This got a lot of special attention, and you just have to feast your eyes on this for a little bit, because you'll probably never get to see anything like it again. Even that button is engraved. You'll now see that the ejection port, and you can see the eagle end, ejection port is engraved. This one you see the similar ejection port. You see the eagle end ejection port engraved. The button engraved on both of them, whereas over here, the lesser guns, you don't see the button engraved. They just went to a lot of, look at even this magazine is deep engraved. And if we jump ahead to this one, magazine may not be original, but the button is engraved. Ejection port is not engraved, but this is ivory with a beautiful engraved. It was issued. See the eagle end. See the front strap and the back strap. And then I mentioned on the underneath side, you can see a pretty ornate pattern underneath. Clearly, this one was more deeply engraved. Just look at that, it's just amazing. So these two, and the final one I'm going to show you, these two were definitely high-ranking party officials. I don't know who this was issued to. It's lost to history. Maybe someday they'll find some records. But just take a look at that. Just absolutely amazing. This had to be engraved while the metal was still soft, because they couldn't do it that deeply in hard metal. So I skipped over this one because this one is a lot like the earlier ones. It was issued. These are from 1940, so the war has started, but the Germans are still riding pretty high because they just went through Poland, Belgium, and France really, really quickly. So they're king of the world, and they're putting out these engraved guns. Just beautiful. By 1941, they pretty much stopped putting out engraved guns. They completely stopped until 1944, when Himmler evidently decided to give out some engraved gifts to some of his friends, and so he ordered some guns. There was, in 44, I did a video about a presentation Sauer 38H to a sniper who had a certain number of kills. I did a whole video on that, and that was in 44, and we know that he also ordered some engraved PPKs to be given out to, sometimes it would just have his signature on it, and it would say, to the bravest, or something like that. So, for your loyal friendship sometimes. So he would do engraved guns and sign them with special presentations to friends or morale boosters for heroic soldiers. So this last one I want to show you is truly unique, and I want to say a little bit about it. First of all, I don't believe these can't be the original grips. This gun was probably in the factory at the end. It was meant to be for the highest of political leaders, because the only one that I've ever seen that has this configuration was Hitler's engraved gun. We have a picture here. The pictures are not great. Not too many people have seen it, but in April of 1939, on Hitler's birthday, he was presented an engraved Walther from the Walther factory. And that has been documented, and we don't know that he ever carried it. He definitely was not with him when he died, so people say he shot himself with a gold engraved PP. That's not true. He probably stuck it in a drawer. He was given a lot of gifts. Every time he visited a factory, it was customary to give him a gift. This gun was given to him on his birthday. And what's unique about it, there's no serial number on it. If you look at every one of these engraved guns, they have, the one thing they don't take out is they never take out the Walther logo. Every time they will engrave around the logo. This one they engraved over the logo, and there's no serial number. And Hitler's gun is the only one that I've ever seen that had no serial number, no acceptance stamp, and no logo. But this thing is deeply engraved. In fact, I take the best, the second best one I have in terms of engraving is this gun. So just look at this ridge, how they engrave that nicely compared to this. It is so deep and so well done. I think it was probably in the factory at the end with no grip on it, and somebody brought it home. But this was definitely going to be presented to a very high-ranking Nazi official. Here's the front strap, and we can compare it to the one that was issued. In fact, here's the HG, high-ranking HG. And here's the bottom. Oh, they didn't do the button. Maybe they're going to engrave that later. Look at the back of this. And then let's take a look underneath here. Take a look at that, the similarities. Absolutely gorgeous. This could almost be a family crest. If it was a family crest, we'd get a better idea, but it just looks like part of the pattern. This is an oak leaf pattern, but it's just slightly different. I've just never seen anything like it. This is an incredible gun. I believe brought home by a GI, taken out of the factory. Deeply gold engraved, and there was no grips on it, so he just stuck a red pair on it. This is gold, but it's not engraved. And this side, it has, the escutcheon is blued, so that's why I don't believe this was original. But it's just a gorgeous engraved Walther PP. There's a lot more engraved guns out there, and certainly you can find them. Most importantly, if you have an engraved gun, send me the serial number. I'll give you feedback. Or if you think it is period engraved or factory engraved, please let me know. But before I move on, I just wanted to show a couple boxes. Many of these came in original presentation boxes when I opened them up. So this was the silver one. And so it came with this magazine, a cleaning rod, and a couple dummy rounds. So this is what the original case looked like. And this one is red. I've seen a few red. The most common is a brown color. And this one, there's a spare magazine, dummy rounds, and again, the cleaning rod. The brown with the green interior and the red with the I guess it's a beige interior. There's one other color that I've seen. The exterior would be like a mustard yellow with a yellow interior. So the three cases that I see are the red, the brown, and the mustard color that are original. These blue cases are actually post-war, and I should say all of these are pre-1946. After the war, Walther did make some beautiful engraved guns, including P38s, PPs, and PPKs, but post-war, they do have factory records, so it's easy to find out which ones are factory engraved. Not easy. You can look it up and find out which are factory engraved. These take a lot of research because the records were destroyed. The engraved post-war come in a blue box. These are all the blue box are all post-war, and they usually will have the Walther banner and fit a PP or PPK. And these sell probably $300 to $500 as opposed to $3,000 to $5,000 for the original cases. So once again, we covered a lot of material. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's mind-boggling. I love bringing these out and showing them to all of you. These came from various collectors, not all from me. So don't be too jealous. So I wanted as quickly as possible to put these away and get them sent out to the original owners, because people start to get nervous when they're missing their beautifully engraved gun. And again, feel free to contact us for a list of the serial numbers, and if you have a serial number you'd like to report for our database, please do. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel, and think about forwarding this to one of your friends who might be a collector. If they're not a collector now, after seeing this, they're going to start collecting. And make sure you hit the notification bell so that you're aware of the next time we post a video.